Have you ever wondered what a world without weekends would be like? Or a factory where safety is just a suggestion? For millions of people in India, that was the reality before 1948. But that year, a landmark law, the Factories Act, came along and changed, well, pretty much everything. So today, let's dive into this critical rulebook that has shaped the modern Indian workplace.
And that's the big question, isn't it? How do you take a place that could be really dangerous and turn it into a safe, humane environment? For centuries, that was the struggle. The Factories Act was India's answer, a huge, comprehensive effort to write down the rules of safety and completely transform the workplace.
So what's actually in this rulebook? Well, it's so much more than a bunch of dry legal jargon. The best way to think about it is as a blueprint for a better workplace. And it's all built on this pretty revolutionary idea that the people who power our industries actually deserve to be protected.
Okay, so a law like this has to be super specific. What even counts as a factory? Well, think of it like this. If you have a small workshop with just a few people, you might not be covered. But the second you bring in power tools and you hit 10 workers, boom, the act kicks in. It's a really simple but powerful way to define exactly where these protections apply.
The Act's entire mission really boils down to these 4 key pillars, and every single one is crucial. See, it's not just about stopping accidents from happening, it's about promoting good health, making sure working hours are fair, and, really importantly, protecting the most vulnerable people in the workforce. It's a complete 360-degree view of what worker protection should look like. So let's start with the first and most fundamental pillar of them all, safety. This is the physical shield that the Act creates for every single worker, from the moment they walk onto the factory floor to the moment they head home.
And it all comes down to these 3 words: health, safety, and welfare. Now, these aren't just buzzwords. They're all part of a deeply connected system. Think about it. A safe workplace has to be a healthy workplace, right? And a healthy workplace is absolutely essential for a worker's overall welfare. You just can't have one without the others. So what does that look like in the real world? It's about the basic dignities that every single person deserves. A clean workplace, fresh air to breathe, good lighting so you can see what you're doing, safe water to drink, and proper places to rest and eat. These aren't luxuries. They're the absolute building blocks of a humane and, honestly, a productive workplace.
But what about the really dangerous jobs? This is where the Act gets incredibly smart. It's not about waiting for an accident to happen and then reacting. It's all about preventing them before they start. This 4-step process creates a cycle of safety. Identify the risk, tell people about it, give them the right gear, and then keep an eye on their health. It's designed to keep people safe, even in the toughest environments.
A safe workplace is about so much more than just physical protection. It's also about respecting a worker's time and their well-being outside of the factory. And that brings us to our second pillar: making sure people get fair hours and the right to rest. And here is a number that literally changed millions of lives: 48. That is the maximum number of hours an adult can be asked to work in a single week. It's such a simple but powerful rule against exploitation and burnout. It's a clear line in the sand that says workers are human beings, not machines. And what about taking a vacation? The Act makes it crystal clear that annual leave isn't some gift from your boss. It's a right that you earn. The formula is actually beautifully simple and fair. If you work at least 240 days in a year, you earn 1 day of paid leave for every 20 days you've worked. It's a system that just bakes the importance of rest right into the law.
Now we get to a part of the Act that, for me, really speaks to its moral core: protecting the most vulnerable. This 3rd pillar is like a dedicated shield for young workers, a recognition that they need special safeguards for their health, their safety, and their future. This quote just perfectly captures the spirit of this section. It's not just about regulating child labor right now. It's about investing in the future of the entire nation. By protecting its young people from exploitation, the Act is really laying the groundwork for a stronger, healthier society down the road. And the law is incredibly black and white on this. If you are under 14, you cannot work in a factory, period. End of story. Now, if you're an adolescent between 14 and 18, you can work, but only under really strict conditions. You need a doctor's certificate saying you're fit for the job, your hours are limited, and you are absolutely not allowed to work the night shift. It's a system designed from the ground up to protect young people. Right, so a rule book is great, but what good is it if nobody follows the rules? All of these protections would be pretty meaningless without a way to enforce them. So, the Act has a pretty robust system in place, designed to make sure these rules actually stick. Think of the enforcement system like a three-pronged approach to keep everyone honest. First, you have inspectors who can show up unannounced. Then you have surgeons who act as the medical gatekeepers, especially for young workers. And finally, you have the state government overlooking the whole thing as the ultimate authority. It's a whole system of checks and balances.
So, what happens if a factory does get caught breaking the rules? Well, the Act has some very serious consequences. And we're not just talking about small fines here. We're talking about holding people truly accountable for the safety and well-being of their workers. And those consequences can be severe. We're talking up to 2 years in prison. This sends an incredibly powerful message. Worker safety is not a suggestion. It is a legal and a moral obligation. And if you violate that, you will be held accountable.
You know, the Factories Act was a product of its time, a brilliant response to the Industrial Revolution. But today, we're living through a totally new revolution, one that's driven by AI, by automation, by the gig economy. So the question we're left with is this. As the very definition of a factory changes right before our eyes, how do we make sure that the spirit of this incredible law continues to protect the workers of tomorrow?